paused, feeling the weight of the world shift as the noise began to fade. It was as if the air itself held its breath in reverence, waiting for something to be heard. In that moment, there was a stillness, not just in my mind, but deep within my spirit. A holy pause. Something had transpired recently, something I did. It wasn't loud, nor was it dramatic. It wasn't for applause or recognition. It wasn't meant for others to see. In fact, I hadn't even realized what had happened. But heaven had noticed. It wasn't a performance. It wasn't a show. What occurred came from a place shaped in quiet obedience, in hidden faithfulness. It was the place within me that had endured storms silently, continued on when everything inside of me screamed to shut down, to retreat, to turn away. This moment, though seemingly small, shifted something within me, something that reached into realms far beyond what my eyes could see. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. I understood this verse in a deeper way than ever before. What had been seen in me, though not extraordinary in the world's eyes, was rare. It was rare because it came from someone who had every reason to be bitter, angry, or ready to give up. Yet in the midst of it all, I chose differently. Not perfectly, but differently. When everything within me said to react, I responded with patience. When weariness pressed down on me like a weight, I chose quiet strength. And in those moments, when it would have been easier to shut down, to refuse to give any more, I chose grace. This response, this choice, echoed far beyond what I could comprehend. Heaven was listening. Heaven was watching. I could sense that, even if I couldn't see it in the physical world. Galatians 6:9 whispered in the depths of my soul, "Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." There was no guarantee of what was to come, but I had to hold on to the truth that heaven was not indifferent. My choices mattered. My choices had weight. I sat with this, my heart settling into the truth that sometimes the quietest acts of faith, the ones no one sees, are the loudest in the spiritual realm. And as I let that truth sink in, I recognized that this message, this whisper, was meant for me. It was a call to acknowledge that moment, to recognize it, and to boldly say, yes. I appreciate your presence here on this journey. If this speaks to you too, I ask you to confirm your connection to this message by typing "I am chosen" below. Let it be more than words. Let it be a reflection of your spirit's alignment with what is unfolding. What happened next was profound. To truly understand why that moment mattered, I needed to step beyond the physical and into the spiritual. In the unseen realm, every movement of the human heart is observed, not just noticed, but studied. There are guardians, watchers, beings who are appointed to carry out the will of the Most High, and they are ever present, witnessing the small, quiet decisions we make. As we journey through life, their eyes are upon us, and when the ordinary rhythms of humanity are interrupted, when a soul chooses grace in the midst of suffering, something shifts. Pain often leads to resentment. Betrayal leads to retaliation. Injustice leads to rage. This is the broken pattern, the familiar rhythm of human response. But sometimes, rarely, someone breaks that pattern, not out of ignorance, but out of something deeper, something eternal. And recently, that someone was me. It wasn't during a peaceful season. It wasn't after a breakthrough. It wasn't when life seemed fair or when hope was easy to find. No, it was in the middle of one of my hardest moments. When the weight of the world bore down upon my soul, when betrayal felt personal, when wounds were real and sharp, and yet in that moment, I chose differently. This was not mere survival. Many survive by building walls, by shutting down, by retreating. But what I did, what heaven saw, was more than survival. It was surrender. The wound didn't define me. Though everything inside of me urged me to respond in kind, I reached for something higher. Perhaps it was in a conversation, when I could have spoken words that would have cut deeply, but instead I chose peace. Maybe it was the decision not to expose someone's flaws, to cover them with mercy, even when no one would have known the difference. Or perhaps it was the quiet decision to remain present, to keep showing up, even when everything in me screamed, enough. That moment, subtle as it was, didn't go unnoticed. It reverberated in ways I couldn't see, in places I couldn't fully grasp. When someone chooses grace where bitterness is justified, when they forgive while still wounded, when they resist becoming the very thing that hurt them, something powerful is revealed. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21 echoed in my mind. That isn't natural. That isn't common. That isn't easy. But it is powerful. It is the kind of power that heaven notices. It is the kind of power that makes angels pause in reverence. It is the kind of power that reminds the heavens that light can still be chosen, even in a world filled with darkness. I didn't realize it then, but in that moment, I proved something not only to myself, but to the realm above. Most people are shaped by their surroundings. Our character shifts depending on how we are treated, how we are loved, or how we are wounded. But what I proved in that small moment of quiet grace was that my spirit is not a reflection of the world around me. My spirit is a source, and my choices are not dictated by circumstance. Even in the midst of pain, I did not allow myself to be reshaped by it. It mattered more than I knew. It was rare. It was holy. And in a world that so desperately longs for something real, it was proof that light still exists in the human heart. At that moment, everything changed. This wasn't just a beautiful idea that seemed disconnected from daily life. This was the moment where everything became real. This was where the divine collided with the ordinary, and I was asked not just to believe, but to embody that belief in every moment. Grace under pressure, faith when hope is hidden, choosing kindness when retaliation feels justified. This wasn't just an act of faith. It was a pattern being formed in me. A new way of being was beginning to take shape. What had been a quiet, unseen act of grace was now a foundation upon which I could build something greater. Heaven had seen it, and it had made a mark. The question wasn't if I was chosen. This was already decided by the very fact that I had responded. The real question now was, how would I continue to carry that grace? I invite you to reflect on your own journey. How do you respond when life pressures you, when you feel overlooked, when things don't go the way you expect? In those moments, the sacred pause is there, waiting for you to decide. It is in that space, between your feelings and your response, that your character is formed. And when you choose grace, when you choose to act from a place of divine strength, something powerful is being shaped in you as well. Stay with me, because what comes next will show you how heaven responds to your heart, and it's only just begun. There are moments in life that appear insignificant, when, in fact, they hold the weight of eternity. These moments, small and quiet, shift the very foundations of the spiritual realm. This is not just about choosing patience when we want to snap, or offering mercy when we'd rather expose the truth. It is about something far deeper, something that transcends our immediate circumstances. It's about spiritual maturity, the kind that is forged in the quiet, unseen spaces, and how that maturity causes the heavens to pause. It all started in one of my most difficult moments, when every ounce of me wanted to react, to retaliate, to defend, to prove myself. In that space, where everything within me screamed for justice, I found myself choosing something greater. I chose restraint. Not because I was weak, but because I had learned, through long seasons of quiet faithfulness, that there is strength in restraint. It was not weakness to remain silent, to choose peace when conflict raged around me. It was the deepest form of spiritual strength, a kind of power that only comes through surrender. Surrender doesn't come easily, especially when we're hurt. It's natural to want to fight back, to make the other person feel the sting of our pain. But to forgive while still wounded, to resist becoming what has hurt us, that is the true test of character. It's not an easy choice, but it's one that makes a profound impact in the spiritual realm. I didn't understand it at the time, but my restraint, my choice to walk in grace, was being noticed. I could feel it, even without seeing it. The spiritual realm was watching. Heaven was taking note. And what I learned in that moment is this: when we choose to respond from a place of grace rather than reaction, something powerful happens. It doesn't just affect us. It sends a ripple through the spiritual realm, one that even the angels cannot ignore. I appreciate you staying with me on this journey. I feel the presence of heaven surrounding us in these moments of reflection. If you resonate with this, I invite you to type "I choose grace" below as a declaration of your commitment to live from this place of power. As I looked back on my response, I realized it wasn't just about that single moment of grace. It was about the pattern it created. Grace isn't a one-time decision. It must become a part of our very nature. It must become our instinct, our immediate response to every situation, big or small. And that's when I realized the true test of grace. It isn't only required when everything is at stake. It's needed most when nothing feels significant at all. Every day offers us a choice. When we're tired, when we're dismissed, when we're criticized, when we're overlooked. These may seem like minor irritations, but in truth, they are sacred invitations. They are opportunities to either react from the wounded parts of ourselves or respond from the spirit that lives within us. And in those moments, there is a holy pause. In that space, character is formed. As James 1:19-20 teaches us, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The pause is where wisdom begins. It's where the power to choose grace resides. In the past, I might have been quick to defend myself, to lash out, to make sure my voice was heard. But now, I had learned that grace isn't the easy choice. It's rarely the one that feels satisfying in the moment, but it is the choice that keeps my soul clean. Restraint isn't about pretending that something doesn't hurt. It's about refusing to let that pain define me. In a world where reactions are quick and sharp, where people are praised for being loud, unfiltered, and sharp-tongued, choosing to be still, choosing to be kind, and choosing to walk the narrow path is revolutionary. I didn't always get it right, but I understood that these moments of restraint, of choosing grace, were not wasted. They weren't unnoticed in the heavens. I had begun to understand the truth in Psalm 141:3. Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. This wasn't a prayer for silence, but a prayer for discipline. And discipline, I'd come to realize, is the fertile soil where integrity grows. I was reminded of the story of David, how he was anointed king long before he was appointed. In the interim, he faced trials that seemed to be designed to break him. He was hunted, dishonored, and misunderstood, even by those he served. King Saul sought his life, and David had the chance to take his enemy's life more than once. But David didn't. In 1 Samuel 24:6, he said, "The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed." David chose restraint in the face of injustice. He chose peace in the face of betrayal. And that's when I realized that I too was being formed in the waiting. The space between my anointing and my appointment wasn't a mistake. It was training. I was learning to walk with restraint, to choose the hard right over the easy wrong, and to trust that every quiet decision, every act of faithfulness, was building a foundation for something greater. So, I looked at the slow, unseen decisions in my life, the moments when no one was watching, the moments when I kept my word when no one would have noticed if I broke it, the moments when I chose gentleness when I could have been cold. And I realized that those choices were building something in me. They weren't about gaining a platform or recognition. They were about becoming the person heaven knew I could be. Heaven was not looking for quick wins or easy victories. Heaven was looking for depth. Heaven was measuring the moments of my life when I chose to remain faithful, even when no one else would have known or cared. Those moments were not small. They were victories, and they were shaping me for something greater. I can sense that you're walking this path too, where the world rewards noise, but heaven rewards silence. You might not always feel seen, but know this: you are being prepared for something far greater than you can imagine. You're being formed in the hidden places, in the spaces where grace is chosen again and again. If you've ever felt the weight of these quiet decisions, I invite you to connect with this message. Type "I walk in grace" below as a testament to your journey of restraint, not out of weakness, but out of divine strength. And though the road may feel long and unseen, remember that what is being shaped in you is not only for you, it is for others. The quiet act of grace that you choose today will ripple out and affect those around you, often in ways you cannot see. Your life is becoming a testimony not through applause, but through authenticity. Through the quiet weight of your choices, heaven is making a way for you to influence others. And the best part? It's not over. What you've chosen in the silence is already preparing the way for what's ahead. You may not see it now, but heaven is moving, and you are part of that movement. Every decision, every step, every moment of grace is building something sacred. Keep walking. Keep choosing grace. You are already living the impact that will change lives, and that, chosen one, is a power the heavens recognize. If you feel the power of this truth within you, type "I receive this grace" below. Let it be more than a thought. Let it be the next step in the unfolding of your divine purpose. Stay with me. There's more to discover. The heavens are just getting started. The world moves in rhythms that we can often feel yet never truly understand. We see the surface, the ebb and flow of the tangible, but there is an entire realm just beyond our reach where things are being shaped long before we notice their effects. I've come to realize that much of what we experience, every trial, every triumph, every test of character, isn't just part of some earthly narrative. No, it's part of a much larger story unfolding in the unseen, where heaven moves in ways we might never fully grasp. As I reflected on my own journey, I began to see a pattern. There were moments when I was sure nothing was happening, when it felt like nothing was shifting. And yet, something deep within my spirit began to stir. It wasn't some dramatic shift, no blazing lights or loud declarations from the heavens, but there was a subtle change in the atmosphere around me. Things began to reverse. The weight that had once pressed down on me so heavily started to lift. People who had worked against me, who had spoken against me or sought to discredit my name, seemed to find themselves tangled in their own words. The attacks that were aimed at me didn't just fail, they collapsed in on themselves. People who once had power to influence my reputation now found their own influence waning. Problems appeared in their lives, unanticipated, uncontrollable. And I stood, not untouched, but unmoved. This was not random. This was not mere coincidence. No, this was divine intervention at work. The forces that had been assigned against me began to lose their grip. Not because I fought back, but because I stood in grace. Heaven's hand had moved, and in that divine moment, I knew what had been happening all along. God was fighting for me. Not in a way that was immediately visible to the world, but in ways that transcended earthly battles. Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." That doesn't mean weapons won't form. It doesn't mean attacks won't come. But it does mean they will not succeed. And when I look back on my life, I see the proof of that truth. I see how the weapons that were meant to break me, to wound me, were turned back. I see how what was meant for my harm ended up becoming the very thing that silenced those who sent it. I want you to pause for a moment and think about your own life. Have you ever experienced something that seemed like an attack, a blow, something meant to take you down, and yet, somehow, you stood? Perhaps it wasn't because you were stronger than the attack itself, but because there was something greater at work behind the scenes. Maybe you didn't notice it at the time, but now, looking back, you see that God was fighting for you, shifting things in the unseen realm. If you felt that divine protection in your life, I invite you to type, "I am protected," below, as a declaration of faith in the unseen forces that guard and guide you, even when you don't fully understand them. In that moment of stillness, I began to understand that what was happening wasn't just about me. It was about divine timing, divine movement. Heaven had recognized my faithfulness in the unseen, and now it was moving on my behalf. It was as if everything in my life had been realigned, not because of my own striving, but because of heaven's orchestration. But this wasn't just about protection. It wasn't just about standing firm when others would have fallen. There was another element to this divine movement: clarity. In the midst of uncertainty, I found that there was a quiet knowing, an awareness that didn't come from my own efforts, but from something deeper. My spirit was being attuned to divine intelligence, and I was beginning to recognize the patterns of heaven's movement. The fog that had once clouded my path began to lift. Decisions that once tormented me with their uncertainty now felt clear. I couldn't always explain it, but I knew. And that knowing didn't come from logic. It came from a deeper spiritual discernment. It was the still small voice within me, guiding me, leading me. In the midst of all of this, I began to see something else unfolding. The people and situations around me began to shift as well. Relationships that had once drained me, that had kept me tethered to places I had outgrown, started to dissolve. And though at first I couldn't understand why, I knew in my spirit that heaven was at work. These changes weren't random, they were intentional. As John 15:2 says, "Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful." Heaven was pruning my life, removing the unnecessary weights, preparing me for what was ahead. At the time, it felt uncomfortable. It felt strange to see relationships and situations fall away when I wasn't ready to let go. But I learned that this pruning wasn't punishment. It was preparation. God was clearing the way for something greater. Not only was I being protected and redirected, but I was being prepared for a higher calling. And so, the shifts continued. The doors that once seemed closed began to open, not because of my effort, but because of divine movement. The relationships that I had outgrown dissolved, but new ones, Relationships that would propel me forward into my purpose were beginning to take shape. Opportunities appeared, doors opened, and things began to move in ways that defied explanation. But this shift wasn't only happening externally. Internally, something was happening as well. I began to sense an inner stirring, a deep knowing that something was about to change. This wasn't anxiety. It wasn't wishful thinking. It was something deeper, something spiritual. I could feel it in my spirit, a growing expectation that something was coming. My spirit had been notified before my mind could grasp it. I want to pause for a moment and invite you to reflect on your own life. Do you sense this stirring too? Have you felt the inner alertness that something is shifting in your life? Perhaps you don't have all the details yet, but you know in your spirit that God is preparing something for you. You may not see it now, but you can feel it. If that resonates with you, type "I feel the shift" below, and let it be a confirmation that you too are walking in alignment with what heaven is unfolding in your life. In Amos 3:7, it says, "Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets." I've come to understand that when we are aligned with God's purpose, our spirits are attuned to his plans. We may not see the full picture, but we sense the movement. We feel the shift before it manifests. And this is not something we can explain with logic or reasoning. It's a divine stirring within us, a knowing that God is preparing us for something beyond what we can see with our eyes. In that moment of reflection, I understood that what was unfolding in my life wasn't just about me. It was about the people around me. It was about those I would meet in the future, those whose paths would cross with mine. As I began to step into this divine alignment, I realized that I wasn't just being prepared for my own breakthrough. I was being positioned to help others find theirs. This is the power of divine movement. It doesn't just impact us, it impacts everyone around us. Our growth, our transformation, our alignment with God's will has a ripple effect that touches the lives of those we encounter. This journey, though deeply personal, is never just for us. It is for others as well. It is about becoming a vessel of divine light, a beacon for those who are lost in the darkness. And so, as I continued on this path, I began to see the subtle ways in which heaven was orchestrating my steps. I could feel it in my spirit. This wasn't just a personal journey. This was about becoming a part of something much bigger. Heaven was aligning me with divine purpose, and as I walked forward, I was becoming the light that others would need. I invite you to reflect on this truth as well. You are not walking alone. Your journey is not just for you. The divine movement in your life is shaping you for a purpose that extends far beyond yourself. You are being prepared to carry the light that others need. If this resonates with you, type "I am a light" below, and let it be a declaration that you are walking in divine alignment, that you are becoming the light for those around you. Stay with me, because what comes next is even more profound. The story is far from over. Heaven is still at work, and you are part of the movement. I had learned in the quiet spaces of my life that the most powerful authority is not the kind that comes from the spotlight or from loud declarations. It's not the authority that demands attention or recognition. No, the deepest kind of authority is forged in the silence, in the private moments when no one is watching. It's the kind of authority that comes from a soul that has remained faithful in the unseen, that has chosen grace over bitterness, humility over pride, and patience over instant gratification. I began to understand that true authority, divine authority, is not about position, titles, or recognition. It is about consistency, about living in alignment with the will of God, even when no one else sees it. Heaven doesn't measure authority by how loudly we speak or how many people we influence. It measures authority by our faithfulness in the small things, by our ability to remain true to our calling when no one is watching. This was the kind of authority I was being shaped for. It wasn't something I could achieve through performance. It was something I had to live into, day by day, moment by moment. And in those moments, when I remained faithful, when I chose grace instead of retaliation, when I stayed true to my word even when no one would have known if I broke it, that was when heaven took notice. I had always thought of authority as something that had to be earned through visible success, through outward achievements. But I began to see that authority, in the eyes of heaven, is not measured by what we do on the stage. It is measured by what we do when no one is looking, by how we respond when life presses in, when we are challenged, when we are misunderstood, when we are overlooked. As I began to live out this new understanding of authority, I found myself becoming more aware of the way I carried myself. I wasn't striving to be seen, to prove something to the world. Instead, I was learning to walk with humility and integrity, knowing that my worth didn't come from how others saw me, but from how God saw me. I want to invite you to reflect on this truth. True authority is not something that is given to us by the world. It is something we earn by living faithfully, by being true to who God has called us to be, even in the unseen places. The world may not recognize our quiet faithfulness, but heaven does. If you resonate with this, if you feel the weight of this truth stirring within you, I invite you to type, "I am faithful," below, as a declaration that you are walking in the quiet authority that comes from living in alignment with God's will. But there was more to it. As I continued on this path of faithfulness, I began to see something even more profound unfolding in my life. I started to realize that the authority that heaven bestows upon us is not just for our own benefit. It is for the benefit of others. It is meant to be a light in the darkness, a source of strength and guidance for those who are lost, who are struggling, who are in need of hope. I had thought of authority as something that elevated us, something that gave us power. But now, I saw it as something that was meant to elevate others. When we carry the authority of heaven, we are not meant to use it for our own gain. We are meant to use it to serve others, to bring healing and hope to those around us. Our authority is a gift, and like all gifts, it is meant to be given away. I began to understand that true leadership in the kingdom of God is not about commanding others, but about serving them. It is about using the authority we have been entrusted with to lift others up, to guide them, to walk alongside them as they too discover the grace and power of God in their lives. This shift in perspective was profound. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the people I was meant to influence, to guide, to lead, not with words or grand gestures, but with my presence, my example, my faithfulness. The authority I had gained in the quiet places of my life was not for me to keep. It was meant to flow outward, to bring others into the light. I began to see that in the kingdom of God, the greatest leaders are not those who are elevated above others. They are the ones who choose to walk alongside others, to serve them, to guide them with wisdom and humility. The more I embraced this idea, the more I saw it reflected in my own life. I started to notice the subtle ways in which my presence was impacting others. I wasn't speaking loud words or making grand declarations, but I found that when I walked into a room, the atmosphere shifted. When I interacted with people, they seemed to find peace, comfort, and clarity. I realized that this was the power of quiet authority. It wasn't in my words, it was in my presence, my willingness to serve, to be faithful in the small things. This was the kind of authority I had been called to carry. It was the authority that comes from a life lived in surrender, in faithfulness, in quiet obedience to God's will. It wasn't about fame or recognition or applause. It was about becoming the kind of person who could carry that weight with grace, humility, and love. I want you to reflect on this. Your authority is not about what you do for yourself. It's about how you serve others. It's about the way you use your influence, not to build your own kingdom, but to build the kingdom of God. Your life is meant to be a testimony of grace, a reflection of the quiet, powerful authority that comes from a life lived in surrender to God. If this resonates with you, if you feel the shift in your own heart toward a life of quiet authority, I invite you to type, "I am a servant leader," below, as a declaration that you are walking in the true authority that heaven bestows upon those who live faithfully, humbly, and with love for others. As I continued to walk in this new understanding of authority, I began to realize something even deeper. This journey of spiritual growth is not just about what we do in the visible world. It's about what is happening in the unseen realm. The quiet choices we make, the moments when no one is watching, are being recorded in heaven. They are being noticed by the angels, by the archangels, by the heavenly council. Heaven is not indifferent to the small things. It is not blind to the quiet acts of faithfulness. What we do in secret is being seen, not just by God, but by the entire spiritual realm. And what I began to realize is that when we live in alignment with heaven's will, when we choose grace, when we choose humility, when we choose faithfulness, we are not just affecting our own lives, we are impacting the entire spiritual landscape. Our actions in the unseen realm have power, they have weight, and the more we align ourselves with heaven's purposes, the more we tap into the divine authority that comes from living in harmony with God's will. This is not the authority of the world. It is the authority of the kingdom of God. If you understand this, if you recognize that your faithfulness in the unseen places is shaping your spiritual authority, I invite you to type, "I walk with kingdom authority," below, as a declaration that you are stepping into the divine authority that comes from living in alignment with God's will. Your life, though quiet and often unseen, is shaping the spiritual realm. Your faithfulness is moving mountains, shifting atmospheres, and changing the course of history. And heaven is taking notice. The weight of divine timing is unlike any other. It doesn't rush. It doesn't follow the clocks and schedules of this world. Divine timing moves with a rhythm that cannot be hurried or delayed. It operates on its own divine clock. And I've come to learn that understanding this rhythm, aligning myself with it, and trusting it, is not just a choice, it's a way of life. It is a surrender to something greater than the immediate, something far beyond what I can see in front of me. As I walked through this journey, there were many moments when I felt like I was standing still, waiting for something to happen. I would look around, and everything seemed to move so quickly, while I felt anchored in place, unable to move forward. These moments, at first, felt like delay. They felt like being stuck, like nothing was moving, like I was being forgotten. But now, I realized that in those moments, something deeper was unfolding. The truth is, God does not operate on our timeline. He doesn't hurry or rush us to where we think we should be. He moves us exactly when we need to be moved, and exactly when we are ready. There is a timing in the spiritual realm that is far more precise, far more intentional than anything we can conceive. And it is in this timing that everything becomes clear. When I look back on my journey, I realized that I was being prepared in the quiet moments of waiting. I wasn't standing still. I was being shaped, refined, and positioned for what was to come. And every delay, every moment of seeming inactivity, was actually part of a larger plan, part of a divine preparation that I couldn't see at the time. Every season of waiting was a season of growth, a season where God was working in ways that I couldn't understand. And this is the part that I want you to understand. Divine timing is never about being passive. It's not about simply waiting without purpose. No. Divine timing is about remaining faithful in the waiting, about continuing to choose grace and patience, even when you can't see the next step. It's about trusting that the path you're on is leading you somewhere, even if the destination isn't clear. This truth began to settle deeply in my spirit. Waiting is not wasted. It is in the waiting that we are formed. It is in those quiet, unseen moments that we are prepared for the tasks, the callings, and the assignments that lie ahead. Every moment of delay is an opportunity for growth. Every moment of stillness is an invitation to deepen our trust in God's timing. I want to pause here and ask you to reflect on your own life. Are you in a season of waiting? Are there areas where it feels like nothing is happening, like you are stuck in place? If so, I invite you to trust that this time is not wasted. God is at work in the unseen places. He is positioning you, preparing you, shaping you for what is to come. If you feel this truth stirring in your heart, type, "I trust His timing," below, as a declaration of your faith in the divine timing that is unfolding in your life. I began to see that God's timing wasn't just about waiting. It was about preparation. Just like an athlete who trains in silence before stepping into the spotlight, I was being trained for something much greater. The struggles, the challenges, the moments when it felt like nothing was moving. These were the moments that were shaping my character, my resilience, my ability to stand when the storms came. And as I began to step into the seasons where divine timing was ready to manifest, I realized something even more profound. Timing isn't just about being in the right place at the right time. It's about being the right person at the right time. Divine timing is not only about positioning us for opportunities, it's about positioning us for transformation. When the right moment arrives, it's not about our circumstances, it's about our readiness. It's about the work we've done in the quiet, the unseen places. The work we've done in seasons of waiting when no one was looking. It's about how we've grown, how we've developed, how we've remained faithful when everything within us said to give up. This is the work that prepares us for the fullness of God's timing. It's not about rushing ahead. It's about being ready when the moment arrives. I began to understand that divine timing works in harmony with our growth. God does not move us ahead of our development. He waits until we have been refined, until we have been shaped into the person we need to be. And this understanding began to shift everything for me. I stopped seeing delays as obstacles, and I started seeing them as opportunities for deeper growth, for greater faith, and for a stronger foundation. And as I walked through this understanding of timing, I also began to see that the world's idea of timing is often very different from God's. The world values speed. It celebrates immediate results, instant gratification. But God's timing doesn't operate on the world's schedule. His timing is perfect, precise, and eternal. It isn't measured by hours or days. It's measured by the depth of the work He is doing in us. I began to realize that every moment of waiting, every season of silence, was actually a sign of God's trust. He was trusting me to wait with grace, to remain faithful even when I couldn't see what was ahead. And this trust was preparing me for a greater assignment, a greater calling. Every delay wasn't a setback, it was a setup. It was God's way of preparing me for what He had in store. I know that you may be in a season right now where it feels like nothing is happening, where it seems like everything is moving too slowly. But I want you to hear this truth. God is preparing you for something significant. He is shaping you, refining you, making you ready for the calling that He has placed on your life. And when the moment comes, when the timing is right, you will step into it fully equipped, fully prepared, and fully aligned with His purpose. I want to invite you to reflect once more. Have you been struggling with a season of waiting or delay? Have you felt like you've been stuck in a place where nothing is moving? If so, I encourage you to trust in the divine timing that is unfolding in your life. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is positioning you for something far greater than you can imagine. If you sense that divine timing is at work in your life, if you feel that God is preparing you for something big, I invite you to type, "I trust His plan," below. Let this be a declaration that you are ready to step into the fullness of His timing. And as I look back on all of this, I see how the pieces have begun to fit together. The waiting, the seasons of silence, the moments of struggle, they were not for nothing. They were all part of God's perfect plan. And when the timing is right, everything will come together in a way that is beyond what we can even imagine. This is the beauty of divine timing. It is never late, never too early. It is always perfect. And when we align ourselves with that timing, we step into a life of purpose, of fulfillment, and of divine destiny. As you walk forward, remember this. Every moment of waiting is a moment of preparation. Every delay is a setup for something greater. Trust the process. Trust the timing. And know that what God has in store for you is far greater than anything you could have planned for yourself. Stay with me, because the journey is just beginning. Heaven is still working behind the scenes, and you are being prepared for something beautiful. Keep trusting, keep waiting, and keep believing in His perfect timing. There's a quiet strength that comes from surrendering to the will of God. It's not the kind of strength that is loud, forceful, or aggressive. It's the kind of strength that is rooted deep within, anchored by faith and conviction. It's the strength that rises up in the face of trials, not by striving, but by yielding to the process. The more I walked this path, the more I realized that true power isn't about control. It's about surrender. Surrender isn't weakness. It isn't about giving up or giving in. It's about letting go of our need to control every aspect of our lives and allowing God to move freely within us. I have come to learn that the more I release control, the more I tap into a power that is far greater than anything I could manufacture on my own. This surrendered strength doesn't seek to push its way forward, but instead trusts the timing of God, the leading of the Holy Spirit, and the unfolding of His plans. I reflect on the many times in my life when I fought against the process, when I tried to rush ahead, when I tried to control the outcome. I wanted to shape my future according to my own desires and timing. But every time I did, I found myself struggling, frustrated, and weary. It wasn't until I learned to surrender that I began to experience true peace and strength. I began to see that surrender was not about abandoning my goals or my desires. It was about aligning those desires with God's will. It was about trusting that God's plan for my life was far greater than anything I could dream up on my own. When I surrendered, I allowed God to guide me, to shape me, and to mold me into the person He had created me to be. This is the power of surrendered strength. Surrender is an act of faith. It's an acknowledgement that we don't have all the answers, that we can't see the full picture, but we trust the one who holds it all. And as I learned to surrender, I found that I was no longer carried by my own strength. I was carried by a strength that was far beyond me, by the strength of God. In my moments of weakness, when I felt like I couldn't go any further, I found that God's strength was made perfect in my weakness. I didn't have to strive. I didn't have to force anything. I simply had to surrender to trust, and to allow God to work through me. And in that place of surrender, I found a power that was unshakable. There are times in life when we reach the end of our own strength, when we are tired, worn out, and broken. It is in those moments that surrender becomes the most powerful act of faith we can make. When we surrender, we are saying, I trust that God can do more with my life than I can. I trust that His plan is better than my own. And when we make that declaration, we open the door for God's strength to flow through us in ways we could never have imagined. I have experienced this time and time again. In the moments when I felt like I was at my lowest, when I had nothing left to give, I found that God's strength was enough. His grace was sufficient. He lifted me up when I could not lift myself, and it was in those moments of surrender that I discovered the true meaning of strength. Not the ability to do everything on my own, but the ability to rely on God's strength and let Him work through me. This is the kind of strength that allows us to endure trials, to overcome obstacles, and to face the challenges of life with grace. It is a strength that is not rooted in ourselves, but in God. And it is a strength that flows from a heart that has learned to trust, to surrender, and to let go. I want to ask you to reflect on your own life. Have you ever found yourself at the end of your strength? Have you ever felt like you couldn't go any further? Like the weight of the world was too much to bear? If so, I want to invite you to surrender that burden to God. Let go of your need to control the outcome and allow Him to carry you through. If you are ready to surrender, to trust God's strength, and to embrace His power in your life, I invite you to type, I surrender, below. Let this be a declaration that you are ready to release the weight of control and allow God to move in ways that only He can. In my own journey, I began to see how surrender was not a one-time event. It was a daily choice. Each day, I had to choose to surrender my plans, my desires, my fears, and my worries to God. I had to continually release my need to control every aspect of my life and trust that He was working in all things for my good. The more I surrendered, the more I experienced God's peace. I didn't have to strive to make things happen. I didn't have to fight for control. I simply had to trust, to let go, and to walk forward in faith. And as I did, I saw God open doors that I could never have opened on my own. I saw Him provide in ways that went beyond my understanding. I saw Him move in my life in powerful ways, all because I chose to surrender. And in that surrender, I began to realize that my strength was not my own. It was a strength that was given to me by God. And the more I surrendered, the more I was able to tap into that strength, to walk in that strength, and to serve others with that strength. True strength is not about how much we can do on our own. It's about how much we allow God to do through us. It's about walking in His power, not our own. It's about living a life of surrender, knowing that we don't have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. God is with us. He is strengthening us. He is guiding us. I want you to hold on to this truth. Surrender is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. It is the strength that comes from trusting in God's plan, His timing, and His purpose for your life. It is the strength that comes from yielding to His will and allowing Him to move in and through you. If you are ready to live with this surrendered strength, to trust God more fully in every area of your life, I invite you to type, I walk in strength, below. Let it be a declaration that you are ready to release control and embrace the power of God's strength in your life. And as you do, know this: the more you surrender, the more you will experience the depth of God's power. You will find that His strength is enough for every trial, every challenge, every storm. And in that surrender, you will discover a strength that will carry you through, no matter what lies ahead. Stay with me, because the journey of surrender is just beginning. Each step you take will bring you closer to the fullness of God's strength, and His will for your life will unfold in ways you never thought possible. Trust the process, trust the timing, and trust that the strength you need is already within you, waiting to be released. In the hidden places of our lives, the transformation is taking place. It's in those quiet, unseen moments that we are being reshaped, reformed, and refined. While the world may not notice, while no applause is given, heaven is observing. It's in those moments of struggle, those moments when no one is watching, that the deepest changes happen. And I've come to understand that this is where true transformation occurs. Not in the spotlight, but in the hidden, private spaces, where we choose to respond from a place of faith, grace, and trust. I remember so many moments in my life where I thought transformation was something that would happen after a major event, after a breakthrough, after a moment where everything was clear. But the more I walked this journey, the more I understood that transformation doesn't always happen in the big moments. In fact, most of it happens in the quiet, in the private spaces of our hearts, where we are alone with our thoughts, our struggles, and our choices. It's easy to think that transformation is something we can see, something that's visible to others. But the deepest transformation is often invisible. It's in the moments when we make choices that no one else sees. The moments when we choose patience over anger, when we choose kindness over bitterness, when we choose humility over pride. Those choices may seem small, but they are the very building blocks of who we are becoming. I used to look for validation, to seek the recognition of others, to feel that my efforts were worth something. But now, I see that it's in the unseen places that I am truly being formed. It's in the quiet surrender, the moments when I choose to be faithful without expecting anything in return. And it is in those moments that God is working in me, shaping me, and preparing me for something far greater than what I can see. I want you to think about your own life. Where are the hidden places in your heart? Where are the areas that no one else sees, but where you are making choices that matter? It's easy to get discouraged when no one notices the hard work we put into our inner transformation. But I want to remind you of this truth. Heaven sees it all. Every small act of faithfulness, every moment of grace, every choice to walk in integrity, even when no one else knows, is being recorded. And it matters. If you've ever felt like your efforts in the hidden places aren't being noticed, I want to encourage you with this. They are. God sees. Heaven sees. And it's in those hidden moments that you are being prepared for the next season of your life. The transformation that is happening within you, though invisible now, will eventually become visible. But the foundation is being laid in the quiet, in the secret spaces of your heart. If you resonate with this, if you recognize the hidden places in your own life where transformation is quietly taking place, I invite you to type, "I am being transformed," below. Let this be a declaration that you trust the process of inner growth, even when it feels like no one is watching. As I continued to embrace the hidden transformation in my life, I began to see that this process was not only shaping me, it was preparing me for something far greater. The truth is, we cannot be entrusted with great things if we are not faithful in the small things. The transformation that happens in the hidden places is what prepares us to carry the weight of greater responsibility, to step into new roles, and to fulfill our divine purpose. It's easy to look at others who seem to be stepping into their calling with ease, who are receiving recognition and success. But I've come to learn that every person who is walking in their purpose has gone through their own private transformation. They have been shaped, molded, and refined in the hidden places. The public success is built on the foundation of private faithfulness. Without the hidden transformation, there is no lasting fruit. I began to realize that God was not only preparing me for what I could see in the future, but He was also transforming me for what I couldn't yet understand. There were things that I wasn't ready for, places I wasn't yet equipped to go. But God, in His infinite wisdom, was preparing me in the quiet moments. He was shaping my character, deepening my faith, and strengthening my spirit, so that when the time came for me to step into what He had for me, I would be ready. This transformation is not easy. It's not glamorous. It's not always comfortable. There have been moments of doubt, moments where I questioned whether I was on the right path, moments where I wondered if I was doing enough. But now I see that it was all part of the process. Every doubt, every struggle, every painful moment was part of the refining process that was preparing me for something greater. And the same is true for you. You may be in a season where it feels like nothing is happening, where you're doing all the right things but not seeing the results you expect. I want to encourage you with this. The transformation is happening. It may be invisible now, but it's real. You are being prepared for something far greater than what you can see right now. The hidden work that God is doing in you will eventually come to light, and when it does, it will be a reflection of the deep, quiet transformation that has been taking place in your heart all along. I want you to hold on to this truth. Nothing is wasted in God's process. Every moment of struggle, every season of waiting, every quiet decision to walk in faith is part of the transformation that is shaping you for your purpose. You are becoming who you were always meant to be, even when it feels like no one is watching. As you walk through this journey, I encourage you to continue trusting the process. Trust that God is at work in you, even in the hidden places. Trust that every moment of faithfulness is building a foundation for something great. And trust that when the time is right, the transformation that has been taking place in the quiet will be revealed in the fullness of God's timing. If you are ready to embrace the hidden transformation that God is doing in your life, I invite you to type, "I trust the process," below. Let this be a declaration that you are committed to the journey of inner growth, even when it feels unseen and unnoticed. Remember, you are being prepared for something far greater than you can imagine. Trust the transformation, and know that everything happening in the hidden places is leading you to the fullness of your divine purpose. The best is yet to come. As I stand at the threshold of what is to come, I realize that everything, the waiting, the transformation, the hidden moments of surrender, has led to this point. This moment is not the end, but a beginning. The journey has been long, and at times it has felt like I was walking in circles, unsure of where I was headed. But now, as I look back, I can see with clarity that each step, each challenge, each decision has been part of a greater plan, a divine purpose that is unfolding piece by piece. What I've come to understand is this: our purpose is not a destination, but a journey. It's a process of becoming, a continuous unfolding that happens as we live in alignment with God's will. We are not meant to rush ahead or to try and control the outcome. Instead, we are called to walk in faith, to trust the path, and to embrace the moments, both big and small, that are part of our divine calling. In the beginning of this journey, I often found myself looking for a clear, defined purpose. I wanted a sign, a moment of clarity that would tell me exactly where I was supposed to go, what I was supposed to do. But the more I walked, the more I realized that purpose is not something we find in a single moment. It's something we discover along the way. It's in the choices we make, the faith we choose to live, the way we respond to the struggles and the blessings alike. I've learned that divine purpose often unfolds in the quiet moments, in the subtle shifts that happen when we are not looking for them. It's not always dramatic. It's not always loud. In fact, it is often in the stillness, in the unseen, that we find our purpose becoming clearer. We are called not to chase after it, but to allow it to unfold naturally, with trust and patience. Looking back, I can see the moments when God was gently guiding me, even when I didn't realize it. The times when I thought I was stuck, when I couldn't see how the pieces of my life were fitting together, those were the moments that were shaping me, molding me into the person I needed to be to walk fully in my purpose. Each season, each struggle, each quiet act of obedience was leading me closer to the destiny I was created for. I want you to think about your own life. Where have you been looking for your purpose? Where have you been striving to figure out what comes next, to make everything fit into a neat plan? If you're like I once was, you might be searching for that moment when everything becomes clear. But what I've come to realize is that purpose doesn't work that way. It unfolds as we walk in faith, trusting that God is guiding us every step of the way. If you resonate with this truth, I invite you to type, "I trust the journey," below, as a declaration that you are ready to embrace the unfolding of your divine purpose, trusting that each step is leading you closer to who you were created to be. What I've learned is that divine purpose is not something we achieve or create. It is something that is revealed to us over time. It is revealed in the way we live, in the way we choose to respond to the world around us, in the way we show up, day after day, with faithfulness and integrity. It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to walk the path, even when we don't see the whole picture. There will be moments in your journey where you feel like you've hit a wall, where the path ahead seems unclear. There will be times when you question whether you're on the right track, when the weight of uncertainty feels heavy. But I want you to hold on to this truth. God is with you. He is guiding you in ways that you can't yet see, and every moment, even the ones that seem to be filled with confusion or doubt, is part of the divine process. Every challenge you face, every moment of uncertainty is shaping your purpose. It is forming you, refining you, and preparing you for what lies ahead. And when you look back, you will see how all the pieces fit together in a way that only God could have orchestrated. In the coming days, you may start to notice the ways that your purpose begins to unfold. It may be through new opportunities, new relationships, or new insights that come into your life. It may be through moments of clarity when you finally see how everything you've been through has been preparing you for something greater. And it may not happen in a single moment. It will happen over time as you continue to walk in faith and trust that God is working in the background, shaping everything for your good. As I reflect on my own journey, I can see that it has all led to this moment. A moment where I am beginning to fully understand my purpose, not as something to be achieved, but as something to be lived. I am learning to live with intention, to walk with clarity, and to trust that God is revealing my purpose at the perfect time. I no longer have to strive to make it happen. I simply have to trust and live with faithfulness, knowing that God is at work, both in the seen and the unseen. And so, I want to leave you with this thought. Your purpose is already unfolding. It has been written for you before the foundation of the world. Every step you take is leading you closer to the person you were created to be. It may not always look the way you expect, but if you continue to walk in faith, continue to surrender to the process, and continue to trust in God's perfect timing, you will see the full revelation of your purpose unfold before your eyes. If you are ready to walk boldly into the unfolding of your divine purpose, I invite you to type, "I am ready," below, as a declaration that you are stepping fully into what God has called you to be. Know that this is only the beginning. Heaven is still working, and your journey has only just begun. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. I believe with all my heart that God is moving in your life, that He is unfolding His plan for you in ways you can't yet fully comprehend. Trust the process, trust the journey, and know that you are exactly where you are meant to be. The best is yet to come. Keep walking in faith.